Well, without more ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is Dr. Nick Kanas. He's internationally recognized as an authority on celestial mapping. He's applied his love of astronomy and his professional involvement in astronautics to inform that. And at this point, I'd also like to plug the updated third edition of his recent book, which you will see, I think, on screen in a moment. Have you got it there, Tom?
The book is here.
At the end?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It was at the front last time I looked. Thank you. So without more ado, can I pass you over to Nick for his presentation?
Great. Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate it. It's wonderful to see you all when I was looking earlier, scanning a lot of, I won't say old friends, a lot of friends appeared, and that's really nice. I've missed Carol, my wife and I have missed our annual trip to the UK, which we love to do the last couple of years. So hopefully this year we can remedy that. Okay, today I'm going to talk a little bit about pictorial maps. It's sort of the latest thing I got involved with in my collecting. And what are these? Well, these are maps that really focus more on artistry than accuracy. Their intention is to create an emotional appeal that stirs you to something, buying a product, visiting an area, some kind of emotional reaction. They often include humorous or satirical material. They have scale variations to highlight certain areas versus other areas using a variety of text formats. They often have fantastic creatures or cartoonish colors. And the idea is to give an emotional impact on the viewer so that he or she will then want to participate in whatever the map is showing. The next slide is an example of a terrestrial map. This is a pictorial. This is labeled the Daily Telegraph Picture Map of London, produced in 1950. By the way, the heyday of pictorials are generally the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. This shows you the pictures of things to do in London, and it's reasonably accurate in terms of some of the streets, but it's not the purpose of the map. It's to convey images. For example, you notice the bright colors, the subjects of famous, different subjects of famous places. If you want to blow up on the left part of the map, there's the Wallace collection, and up near Regent's Park, highlighted in broad colors is Madame Tussauds. So we're looking at this as a tourist map of what you want to do when you come to London. You want to visit the Madame Tussauds. And the other side of the map, Tom, if you can show me that to everyone, is the Royal College of Surgeons, and it shows a fellow over here, yeah, over here on the left, a doctor, and you can see that image conveys what the Royal College of Surgeons is about. And then there's the usual hallmarks such as Tower of London and St. Paul's and so on. So the idea, though, is to convey this sort of emotional imagery and make you want to come to visit. Along the periphery, for the part of the color and the humor, are borders of vehicles and cartoonish people dressed in the old days style to convey the history, or the late 1940s, about the time the map was done. The next slide is a celestial pictorial map. This is a map that was promoted by, it was done by Lucien Boucher in 1951, and it's published by Air France, it's a lithograph. And the idea is to advertise the Air France's routes. Circa 1951, you see at the bottom with the Earth and the routes stemming out of Paris with the airplane in kind of Art Deco style, which is very popular in the pictorials. So you get some idea of Air France and what they do, but look at the map. The map conveys an emotion to you, which is visit the heavens, visit the sky, join us, fly in the heavens, and you become part of this wonderful mythology of the constellations that appear. In an odd way, these are dominant compared to the routes of Air France, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is to get you excited about flying and make you want to do it. So you see the various constellations in the northern and southern hemispheres, Art Deco style, cartoonish with color, and even some humor. If you can scoot out a little bit, Tom, you notice here there's a plane's coming around one of the Air France planes is coming around the world. Cetus, the sea monster, is about ready to devour it. So you get even a sense of kind of humor and to kind of get you involved with the joy and the pleasure of flying. And in the corner, you see the various winds and angels blowing from the winds. So it's a pictorial map to get you excited about flying. And oh, by the way, don't forget to fly Air France. The last slide I'll show is the next map. This is one of my favorites. This was produced by Merrill Lynch to celebrate the lunar landing. And what you see is a number of pictorial elements here. This was 1969, titled Myths, Maps, and Men. You'll see a number of things. For example, the lunar features on the right, the hemisphere that faces us, they're named for oceans. And so how are they shown on this map? They're shown as ocean of storms with lightning and thunder and the sea of rains, and you see sea monsters floating in. Now, of course, there's no water on the moon, but the idea is to convey the humor of the mapping titles according to the near surface of the moon. You also see historical things like the footprint of the Apollo 11 astronaut there that landed. The Sea of Clouds, you see clouds. The left side is the far side of the moon, which shows a few of the details. And because at that time the Russians were the ones who had been there, you see a Russian spaceship and some of the titles to illustrate that. But it's not all that it is shown. If you kind of come back, Tom, and thank you very much, by the way, for running this slide. You see the presidents that were involved with the lunar landing. You see kind of a grumpy Nixon at the top, kind of a scowling Johnson, and a little more chipper John Kennedy. These are the ones that were involved with the lunar landing, the first lunar landing, riding an American eagle. So you have a little bit of nationalism here. And then in the middle of the image between the two hemispheres, you see a rocket, the Apollo, blasting off to go there. And then, but a number of humorous things are also shown in around the periphery. So you notice to the right of the image, the right upper, the cow jumping over the moon, over to the right upper part, Tom.
That's all right.
Well, there you see the cow jumping over the moon is a kind of a little humorous element. And down below where Tom just was, you see Galileo looking at the moon amidst some of the clerical people scowling at what he's doing to destroy the idea of the Aristotelian view of the moon that his telescope showed. But because it's Merrill Lynch, they don't want you to forget that they're important too in producing this wonderful picture. So you see a ticker tape, and you see stock market paraphernalia down the bottom next to Romeo and Juliet being enamored by the moon. So you get the idea that still there's a little bit of an advertisement that's overt. Nevertheless, the whole sense of this is to celebrate an event, to show Merrill Lynch as part of that event in the text that's shown below, and to get you excited about saying, gee, this is really kind of a cool map. I want one. And oh, by the way, Merrill Lynch, I can't forget that they're important in producing this map. So this is another pictorial with the intention of celebrating an event. The last one I showed intention is to basically advertise for Air France. This celebrates an event, but along the way, there's an advertisement that's also involved. So those are the three maps I wanted to show you as examples of pictorials. Pictorials have gotten very popular. They're very collectible. If you think about it, the 1930s, 40s, and 50s is the last century. So they're now antiquarian. And you can now buy these things. A number of dealers in London and New York and in La Jolla, sell pictorial maps, and they're very nice to have. In the last picture, I mentioned the book, shamelessly publicizing it, because there's one of the new chapters in this third edition is on pictorials, terrestrial and celestial, if you're interested in pursuing it. So I'll stop and see if there's any questions.
Well, we have a first question, Nick. Thank you very much indeed. It's a simple question, this. Anne Paper is quite curious about where the Air France and Merrill Lynch pictorial maps were published and distributed. In other words, who were they
published in Paris? In Paris. And Lucien Boucher was a very famous graphic artist of the time, and he did a whole bunch of these for Air France. And they were distributed, they were given out as publicity. Now you can buy them. They're very expensive. The Lucien Boucher ones are expensive because he's quite well known. But you can find them online if you're interested in collecting them now.
Great. Do you know what kind of amount were distributed?
That I don't know. I know that there's a whole series. There's about 6 of them that are similar to the one I showed. They went over about a period of about 10 years. I have one that's 1951, a small version. Most were published in the 1940s.
Thank you very much. Are there any more questions before we move on? Oh yes, we have one from Ellery Kurtz. With the rise in interest for illustration art in general, would you think that pictorial maps will show the same level of price increases?
The same level of what?
Price increase.
Well, maybe some of the dealers online could comment on that. My guess is they have been expanding in prices. And I know that some of them are still very reasonable, but the Boucher ones, the big ones anyway, are in a couple $1,000 range. So they have increased as they become more collectible, like pretty much anything. But you can still find them in dealers and online in the hundreds or less.
Yeah, and if they're classed as miscellanea rather than something else, maybe
that's right.
Better prices.
Yeah.